Hey guys, it's Jeb here, and in today's video, 3 reasons Bitcoin is turning into a global safe haven for investors. You guys have probably heard the narrative that the economy is going to crash, there's going to be a major recession, the stock market is going to tank, and people are going to need to find somewhere to hide and hedge their money. And I'm not saying I necessarily disagree with that, but that is the narrative that a lot of people are subscribing to, and a lot of those people seem to be moving to cryptocurrency. In a Twitter thread, the former Goldman Sachs executive makes the case for why the world is fast approaching a currency crisis. Powell also believes Bitcoin will thrive throughout the impending monetary carnage, and he warns, "We're at the most important juncture in Forex markets in my entire 30-year career. The dollar appears at risk of an uncontrolled rise." So we're going to be discussing that a little bit later, but we also have to dive into some Bitcoin technical analysis, guys, because I do believe that there is going to be a breakout coming today, ladies and gentlemen. As we can see, Bitcoin is very much in a consolidation pattern. If we zoom in here to shorter term time frames, Bitcoin very much looks like it's going to be seeing some kind of breakout, probably within the next 4 to 5 hours of recording this video. But anyway, guys, before we dive on into it, I do want to remind you that if you do enjoy today's video, make sure you smash that like button. And if you enjoy the content that you see, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification bell, guys. We do daily cryptocurrency content, and I wouldn't want you to miss any of it. So without much further ado, let's go ahead and dive right on into it. The first thing that we, of course, have to discuss is the decision point that Bitcoin finds itself in right now. As you guys know, Bitcoin rallied all the way up to $12,300 a few days ago and had a crash from there. Luckily, though, this 4-hourly 20 exponential moving average that we've been talking about for about a week or so did actually manage to catch us and give us support, and we bounced bullish off of that, rallying back to about $12,000 yesterday. From there, Bitcoin's had a slight pullback down to around $11,870 where it's trading right now, but that does put us in this consolidation pattern. And today we're going to find out if Bitcoin is going to make the decision to break bullish, to break bearish, or the much more unlikely scenario, which is Bitcoin trades sideways. So in this video, we're going to be discussing both scenarios, and I'm going to give you my opinion on which one I think is more likely at the end of the analysis. Okay, guys, to start off with, the first thing I want to make very clear is that Bitcoin is in a consolidation pattern right here. There has been a lot of volume during this consolidation pattern. It has generally been trending to the downside. We are very much in a pattern of consolidation. Bitcoin had a major rally running into this consolidation pattern, which does generally mean that that's going to result in a bullish breakout. Furthermore, Bitcoin is quite far into this consolidation pattern. As you can see, we're probably over 80% of the way through this pattern. We're 53 bars in here on the hourly chart, and there's only about 60 to go. So we're over 80% of the way through this consolidation pattern, meaning that a breakout is probably going to come very soon, and that breakout is going to result in a lot of volatility. At least that is what I have seen from these kind of patterns in the past. One more thing to keep in mind is that during these consolidation patterns, when you get past like the 80% point of a consolidation pattern, if you have a breakout, there's much more randomness that goes into it. Because at this point, guys, for Bitcoin to break bullish or bearish here, it only has to move 1% in either direction, and it's going to be a breakout. So what that means is that technical analysis is, of course, always going to be very important and valid, as it is in this case. But if you have someone on thin order books, this isn't really going to happen as much because this is trading during the day and not during the night. But if someone comes in on thin order books, or someone comes in with a very large order and a whale comes in, they can easily moon Bitcoin or crash Bitcoin 1% and cause a major breakout. You guys know I don't really subscribe to the narrative of, oh, the whales and the manipulators are moving Bitcoin and pulling all the strings, and the Illuminati is making Bitcoin move to the upside. I don't subscribe to that, although that is definitely a factor sometimes, not so much the Illuminati part. But in cases like this, it is very true. Those whales can cause Bitcoin to start trending in one direction, and then that momentum can domino into a bullish or a bearish rally, which is why these decision points right here are so important to watch, and it's so important to wait to make your trade until the breakout has happened. So with that said, let's look at some technical indicators and try to see which direction the TA is telling us Bitcoin's going to move. The first thing I'd like to point out is here on the hourly chart, as we can see, Bitcoin's MACD is in fact bearish, but you would expect that to happen considering Bitcoin is sitting here above the 0 level, and we've been trending downwards for the last 12 hours or so. Just because we're bearish on the MACD on the hourly chart is not actually that bad, considering we've been testing this level of resistance all night. We have, in fact, seen a reversal in the histogram here on the MACD over the last hour or so, and that does mean that these two lines are converging on themselves. That's called bullish convergence of the MACD, and that does indicate that we're probably going to see some kind of cross in the next 3, 4, 5 hours, something to that effect. Likewise, the RSI is moving to the upside. I like seeing the RSI between about 60 and 80. That's where I like it. That's where I like to see it bouncing around during an uptrend. We are starting to curve back in that direction. Of course, the hourly chart's going to be more responsive, and we have been trending slightly down over the last few hours, but since we're in a consolidation pattern, that's not the end of the world. As far as the 4-hourly MACD is concerned, this is also trending to the downside, but I would argue that this isn't a very bearish thing considering how far away we are from the zero level. If you guys are in the Cryptocurrency Technical Analysis Academy, which many of you guys have joined over the last several days, you will know from the MACD video in there that as the MACD gets further away from the zero level, it tends to trend back towards the zero level, which does cause more bearish crosses when you're above and more bullish crosses when you're below. Right now, we've been very far above because Bitcoin's been trending to the upside for several days. So while this may look bearish on a glance, it's not actually that bad. The important thing to look at here is that Bitcoin was bullish for a very long time, and ever since we started trending downwards on the MACD here, Bitcoin has been in consolidation. It's not been in a downtrend. That's what you need to look at. Furthermore, guys, and what I honestly think is probably one of the biggest pieces of bullish evidence is this. Bitcoin has tested this downtrend and as a result also this downtrend many times. As you can see, we've only tested support once, maybe twice, a little candlestick, a little wick right here. We just haven't tested it very much. But in contrast, we've tested our resistance once, twice, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. We'll just call that once, 4 times, 5 times, kind of 6. Bitcoin has tested that level of resistance, this downtrend, many more times than it's tested support. And as you guys know, the number of times that you test a level of support or resistance is a big indicator as to whether or not it will be broken. If Bitcoin tests a level of support or resistance 2 or 3 times, gets rejected, and never goes back up to that level again, it's obviously a very strong level of resistance, and we're very far overextended. An example of that would have been $20,000 up here on Bitcoin. Bitcoin only tested it once, and this little wick right here was only on Coinbase. Bitcoin was very clearly overextended. It very clearly did not have the strength to break through $20,000. Now let's imagine a different scenario where Bitcoin comes up and tests $20,000, and then instead of crashing all the way down to $6,000, what it does is it comes up here and tests it, and then it tests it again, and again, and again, and again, and again, and again. That's where we are right now. Does this look more bullish than what actually happened, guys? What looks more bullish, this or this? I'll tell you what I think looks more bullish, testing a level of resistance over and over and over and over and over again, and that's how that's always played out in my experience when I'm doing my technical analysis. So guys, with all that in mind, let's also look at the bearish scenario here because there is one, and we're going to draw our conclusion here in a few minutes. One of the biggest arguments for the bears right now, and I'll be honest with you guys, I'm leaning more towards the bullish side, but we'll get to that in a second, is that Bitcoin has not broken this downtrend of resistance yet. We've been testing it for several days, and we've rejected from it several times. We rejected from it once, we rejected from it twice, we rejected from it maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 times up here. That is something that a bear right now would say. That's not what I'm saying. My argument is that we've tested that level of resistance 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times, and that's very bullish, but a bear might say the exact opposite and say, no, in fact, we've tested that level of resistance this many times. Every time we've gotten rejected, Bitcoin is overextended on a lot of its oscillators. For example, out here on the daily chart, for example, out here on the 4-hourly chart, we can see the RSI got pretty overextended right now. The MACD is bearish. They'd use a lot of the same technicals that I would use, but instead not look at them in a bullish light. They'd look at them in a bearish light. And guys, I'll be quite honest with you, moving into our conclusion here, I simply don't agree with that analysis. I think that Bitcoin is looking very bullish right now. I think that at the moment, since Bitcoin is still in this consolidation pattern, and since we've tested this level of resistance several times, that is the saving grace that we've been looking for. Bitcoin has not fallen below the 20 exponential moving average on the 4-hourly chart. We're still testing this many days on in. Over here, we tested this for like 12 hours and rejected flat and fell on our face. Bitcoin's been rejecting this for a while, and we've set this bull pennant in motion that we can actually use to continue even higher. This is a bullish pattern, guys. I didn't mention that earlier, but when you see a pennant form at the top of an uptrend, guess what? You're technically supposed to draw your price targets like that. And if you were to do that, the price target puts us all the way up here above $14,000. Now, I'm not really a big fan of the price target system, but the fact remains that that is one of the ways that you would do that. In my humble opinion, guys, we're still in a downtrend as far as the longer term timeframes are concerned. As far as I'm concerned, guys, we are still in a downtrend as far as the longer term timeframes are concerned. And as you guys know, as far as I'm concerned, a market is going to be in a bearish trend until it has proven that it has broken it bullish, and a market is going to be the exact opposite in the opposite scenario. But right now, guys, I am pretty bullish on Bitcoin because Bitcoin looks like it's just on the very cusp of breaking bullish and getting out of this downtrend that's been plaguing it ever since late June. Now, I want to be very clear, and I do want to say that this is a decision point, and there is a high degree of randomness in this because we do see that Bitcoin is so very close here to the end of this consolidation pattern. This could break bullish, this could break bearish, or it could trade sideways. My money money based on the technical analysis because I can't do analysis on what the whales are going to do. I have no idea what trades they're going to make. Based purely on the analysis and the fundamentals, which we didn't cover so far, I would put a much higher degree of certainty that if Bitcoin doesn't break out here, that we might crash and then have a breakout in the coming days. I do think that Bitcoin's looking pretty bullish right now, and it does, at least at the moment, look like Bitcoin's going to have a bullish breakout, and I am still looking for that entry on that leverage trade that I've been talking to you guys about for the last 3 or 4 days or so. But I want to make it very clear that whatever Bitcoin does in this consolidation pattern is going to determine whether or not I'm bullish or bearish and what kind of trades I make. If we break bearish out of this with a lot of volume and we start moving down to and below $11,000, I'm not going to be bullish anymore because Bitcoin failed to prove that the bulls were the ones that were correct, and it reinforced the idea that the bears are the ones that are in control of the trend. If we see that happen, then I'll be bearish. But for right now, I do feel pretty bullish on Bitcoin. So with that said, let's go ahead and dive on into our news story for today. 3 reasons Bitcoin is turning into a global safe haven for investors. There is a lot to cover in this article, and we're not going to cover all of it. I do highly encourage you to go check out this article if you are interested. I'll link this in the description in case you want to come read it for yourself. We're going to be jumping around a little bit in this article because I don't want to go into everything in here, but there are a few concepts that I want to use this as a jumping point for. Every fiat currency is devaluing itself on purpose. As the US and other countries attempt to bolster economic growth through rates cuts, investors are beginning to flock to gold, cash, government bonds, and increasingly Bitcoin as a hedge, according to economist Raoul Pal. In a Twitter thread, the former Goldman Sachs executive makes the case for why the world is fast approaching a currency crisis. Pal also believes Bitcoin will thrive throughout the impending monetary carnage, and he warns that we're at the most important juncture in Forex markets in my entire 30-year career. The dollar appears at risk of an uncontrolled rise. And to curb the incredible FUD that is coming out of this article, I do want to remind you guys that people have been calling for doomsday scenarios with the US dollar and with the economy for centuries. I mean, this is nothing new. That doesn't mean that he's wrong, but I do want you to realize that just because someone says something like this doesn't necessarily mean it's going to come to pass, even if he has a 30-year career to back up what he says. I'm concerned about the state of the global economy just as much as anyone else, but I also don't want you to think that the sky's about to fall and we're going to have blood raining from the clouds just because of some things happening with interest rates. So I don't want you guys to freak out, but there are important things going on in the economy that we need to keep an eye on. We've been talking about that for a long time. Essentially what that article is saying is that Bitcoin's starting to look like a very, very good hedge against traditional finance markets. Let me give you an example of that. Over the last few days, the S&P 500 has been not doing very well. If you guys have seen anything to do with the news, you'll know that ever since the beginning of the month, the S&P 500 has been dropping. The S&P 500 is down about 5% right now, and at a maximum about 7%. That is pittance in Bitcoin, but that's pretty major for the S&P 500, guys. But also one thing I want to point out is that during that time, during the last 6-7 days, what has Bitcoin been doing? Bitcoin has been rallying, literally right here. 30th of July, Bitcoin started a rally. Guess what happened on the 30th of July in the S&P 500? The S&P 500 started a crash the next day. Now, I'm not necessarily saying those two had anything to do with each other, but the point I'm making is that there's not a very strong correlation between the two markets, as this article actually talks about down here. Bitcoin has a negative correlation with the S&P 500, but the main thing I'm trying to point out is that even during economic uncertainty, even during economic downturn, that shouldn't really affect Bitcoin all that much. The only way that that's going to affect Bitcoin, in my opinion, is that people that don't have a lot of money to invest anyway in a bull market or during a recession, they're not going to be able to invest a lot of money in Bitcoin, and unfortunately that is the way the system structure is, that recessions and investment opportunities, they do benefit the people that have more money, which is why the rich get richer, as they say. But the point I'm trying to make is that a lot of the money in the economy will be moving into Bitcoin when a recession happens, partially because of the inverse correlation that we just talked about, but also because Bitcoin is not being controlled by the same people that caused the crash that's probably going to happen in the next several years. We'll see whether or not that crash comes to pass, guys. People have been calling for a crash in the real estate markets. People have been calling for a crash in the economy. For when did the last recession end? A millisecond after that ended, people have been calling for one. And just because people are calling for one doesn't mean one's going to happen. That's why you always got to do your own analysis. You got to always do your own fundamental and technical analysis. Read up on everything. Figure it out for yourself. Think for yourself, guys. Don't let someone else do your thinking for you. That's one of the best pieces of advice my father ever gave me. But I do think that no matter what happens in the economy, Bitcoin's going to do well. And if the economy does have some kind of crash, during the crash and in the 3 to 4 years following the crash, I think it'll be very, very good for Bitcoin. Bitcoin was birthed from the ashes of the previous recession, guys. Bitcoin was first mined on January 3rd, 2009. That was about a year after the financial crisis started. Bitcoin was a result of the failures of the global economy and of the people that are pulling the strings behind that economy. It was designed to curtail the issues that come along with having a billion different regulators trying to manipulate the same economy and their influences overlapping and causing problems. Anyway, that was actually the main thing that I wanted to touch on here, was that Bitcoin is becoming a hedge for traditional finance markets and also for the economy at large. I'm looking very much forward to what Bitcoin does over the next few years, and if a recession does happen, because a recession has never happened during the existence of Bitcoin in the cryptocurrency industry, I am extremely interested to see how Bitcoin reacts to that. If Bitcoin reacts anything like the GLD ETF did, then we'll come out of it smelling like a rose. Guys, look at the massive, and I do mean massive, rise that happened as soon as the recession ended, back over here in 2007 and 2008. We saw there was a little bit of a pullback during the recession as people were pulling their money out of gold to pay bills, but as soon as the recession ended, gold went on one of the biggest bull runs in history, and I think a similar thing could be happening to Bitcoin during the next one. So anyway, guys, the point of this video was not to spread FUD. The point of this video was not to make you guys scared of an impending recession. It was simply to do a little bit of technical analysis and explore the possibility of a recession and what that might look like as it relates to Bitcoin. If you guys did enjoy today's video, make sure you smash that like button, guys. It helps the video get ranked in the YouTube algorithm, and it helps us spread the gospel of Bitcoin far and wide so that everybody will know the name Bitcoin and they can come invest in it, and Bitcoin will rally and we'll all make a bunch of money, and it'll be glorious, and we'll sing Kumbaya. And also, guys, if you're new here, make sure you smash that subscribe button. It's that little red button right below the video. I promise you I won't charge you for that. I promise you it's free. I won't charge you. I won't even make you pay me in Bitcoin to press that subscribe button. If you hit that, I promise you good things will happen. You'll have good karma. Everything will come out great. You'll make a bunch of money in Bitcoin. That is not a promise. This is not financial advice. Don't sue me. But then also one more thing, guys, is that if you are subscribed to the channel, make sure you hit that notification bell, guys. YouTube does not push videos to your subscription feed more often than not, and hitting that notification bell means you'll be updated every single time a new video goes out or every single time a new live stream starts, which, by the way, there should be a live stream later on today. I'm not going to say the time because I'm not sure what my schedule is like, but we're going to try and have one going anyway. Anyway, guys, that is going to do it for today's video. I do hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, like I said, hit that like button. But anyway, guys, that is going to do it for today's video. I do want to thank each and every single last one of you for watching, as always, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.